Working from home, is it all it's cracked up to be? And are employees yielding to the calls of employers who are now bringing them back into the office after the COVID period when many of us got quite used to, quite fond of the home office? Let's say good morning to Melissa Wilson from CEDA. Calling from an office, Melissa, or from home?
Good morning, David. I am working from home myself this morning.
Well, and how are you finding it?
I'm a big fan. I really enjoy it.
So you're more productive at home or in the office? Don't worry, your boss isn't listening. It's okay.
I think, look, every role is different. I think for my role, I do a bit of coordination and help out with our events and members of the CEDA membership base. And so for that part of my role, it's really handy to be in the office and coordinating with my peers. But then I also have a research element to my role, and that's where the quiet focus at home is really beneficial. And I juggle 2 young kids as well. So,
Is it so? Obviously, working from home peaked at COVID. Have the numbers held, or are we starting to see a trickle back to the office?
Yeah, absolutely right. I kind of think of it in 3 phases. You know, we had the pre-COVID phase when only around 5% of Australians were regularly working from home, and that included things like farmers, people running their own business. Office workers were pretty much exclusively in the office. And then overnight, as COVID hit, that shifted and everyone was almost exclusively back in. And now we're working our way through that third sort of new normal phase. As you mentioned in the intro, the data is showing that since the pandemic, around 1/3 of Australian workers are working from home on a regular basis. That includes 60% of managers and professionals. And what we've seen in the data is that that stayed pretty steady at that level over the past couple of years. So work from home, that option to work from home is clearly very popular among workers.
Oh, hang on. Let me just pick up on one of those stats. So 1/3 of a third of workers working from home, but 60% of managers working from home.
Yeah, that's right. 60% of managers and professionals are working from home on a regular basis. So that doesn't mean exclusively working from home. Most of these people have some sort of hybrid arrangement where they're, typically going to the office a few days a week and having a couple of days at home as well, something like that.
What about the productivity side of it? I've heard both arguments made that it really is just, it allows many employees to fly under the radar and get less done, unless it's sort of washing up or vacuuming the house. What are your thoughts? Is there any real data available on how working from home affects productivity?
Yeah, look, there is. Obviously, it's still early days. There's only been really widespread working from home for a few years, but there has been quite a bit of research done in that time so far. So the latest research really indicates that if you have that hybrid approach where you've got a little bit of work in the office and a little bit of at home, that those hybrid workers are just as productive as their office-only colleagues. And that's really because hybrid can achieve the best of both worlds. You can get some quiet focus at home, you can avoid the commute and have some flexibility, but you can also have that in-person collaboration and innovation piece with your colleagues in the office. And the key to that is really good coordination of people and tasks and good management, and also supportive cultures and attitudes. It's a little bit different. The story's a bit different when you look at fully remote, when people aren't going into the office regularly. Studies on fully remote have a really broad range of productivity estimates, and some are positive and a lot of them are negative. And what really makes the difference for fully remote is good management there. That's really the key. But the key benefit when it comes to fully remote is access to specialised talent. So if you've got very specific roles or very hard to find skills, you can open that up to a much broader range of candidates and find the right person for the right role. And if there are roles that don't really need to be in the office, maybe things like IT support or payrolls or some contractor roles, things like that, that can work quite well fully remotely as well. It just depends on the role.
Well, certainly Silicon Valley has well and truly fallen out of love with working from home, even though they're the ones that really enabled it to happen with technology like Teams and using the VPN to dial into your work network. Peter Thiel saying that he's the sort of PayPal founder and Silicon Valley investor, and many other companies, I think Amazon and a lot of the big banks are also calling their employees back. But what if you say no to your boss? What if you say, no, I want to work at home? Do we have any rights there?
Look, we do. Employers can say no, but there are some conditions around that. So in Australia, requests for flexible working arrangements form part of the National Employment Standards, which apply to all employees covered by the National Workplace Relations System. And within those standards, it includes the right for certain employees to request flexible working arrangements. So that's particularly designed to support employees who are pregnant, parents and carers, people with disability, older workers, people experiencing domestic violence. And they generally have been with their employer for at least a year usually. And there's a standard formal process that is marked out for making those requests. Employers are able to refuse those requests, but they have to consider those requests seriously, and they can only refuse if they have reasonable business grounds for refusal. So, for example, if the employee can't perform their tasks from home, or it's too costly or impractical for the business. Having said all of that, it's really the ideal situation is where employees and employers really work together to find the best arrangement that suits the employer, but also suits the employee as well.
On ABC Radio, Melissa Wilson's my guest from CEDA, and we're talking about working from home. And thanks to everybody who's been sharing their own working from home experiences. Stephen's wife works at home. He says she gets more done because she's not disturbed by other workers. A bit different in a radio studio. Sadly, they won't build one in my basement at home. I work from home. This says this other texter sporadically, and I find it makes me more productive. I talk on the phone a lot and I feel more confident and comfortable knowing I'm not bothering other people in the office. Kirsten in Kingston says the reality is that workers will work wherever. In the workplace, there are workers that aren't productive as well. Good point, I suppose. Alice, you're in Hobart. You say, I work from home. There's a local office, but my team is on the mainland, so it doesn't make much sense to go to the office. I still see some people from the local office outside of work hours. I have meetings without headphones, and I find that I can focus much better. I'm very productive. Look, that's interesting, that sort of thing of distraction. If you work in a creative workplace, as I suppose we do at the ABC, where you're sort of having to bounce off your colleagues all day, it really is just... It really is. I find that having my colleagues around me makes me more productive because we're always sort of just talking through ideas. But I suppose if you're in one of those professions, Melissa Wilson, where solitude and not being disturbed is important, then maybe working from home is better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about getting that balance. And even within a single role, there might be some tasks that work better in person and some tasks that work better at home. So some of your callers have spoken about that quiet, uninterrupted working environment at home. That's definitely a benefit. But there's also research that says that if you're doing collaboration and innovation, which is what you're talking about in your role, David, that's really better done in person and with all of your team members. That collaboration, our minds seem to be more creative when we're sitting in a room rather than narrowing our focus down onto a screen. Well,
thanks for that, Melissa. You've really got people talking. Appreciate your time this morning, and I'll let you get back to your productive day at home.
No worries. Thanks for having me.